In this course, we're going to be taking you through how to make trap music right from the beginning to the end. And we're going to go in depth with some of the techniques that the super producers use to make their tracks sound so good. Trap music is about that hip hop feel with a modern touch. It's the kind of music that Lil Pump, Cardi B, and Drake all sing and rap over. So let's start by creating our foundation, which is going to be our drums. We need to start with the drums because it allows a solid platform onto which we can build melodies, add bass lines, and eventually make the structure. I'm going to go ahead and open up the EXS24 sampler in stereo. And we're going to start by putting our hats down. Now, if you are not using Logic, doesn't matter, you can use any sampler you want. It's pretty easy, you just drag an audio sample into it and you'll be able to trigger it via your MIDI keyboard. I'm going to hit the edit button right here. And then I'm going to go ahead and access some samples that I've loaded onto my desktop. Now the samples that I'm going to be using are 808 samples. 808 is a very famous drum machine from the 80s, which resonated through hip hop, techno, and house music, but is probably most famously known in this day and age for its trap sounds. Now, there are a few sample packs here. You may recognize Metro Boomin and Wonder Girl. They actually put out some free sample packs, so I recommend you go and download those if you can. And I'm just going to get a hat from 808 Drums here. Closed hats. And we're just going to look for something quite simple. Usually I would drag all the samples in at once, but we're just going to drag one sample in and you'll see why in a bit. When you drag one sample in, it actually tunes it across your whole keyboard, and this is what we want. We want to be able to have that control over the tuning of the hat, and this is going to come in really handy later. So that's the original. That always lands at C3, and you can see if I go down my MIDI keyboard, we can get some really cool stretched out versions of that sample, which are going to be great for adding texture later. So I'm going to go ahead and close that, save it, and let's just make a new folder here. Let's just call it Trap Drums. Now we use the hi-hat first because it's great for essentially creating a metronome onto which we can build the other drums. I'm going to set the tempo to 140. Now we can always change this later if we want to. And I'm just going to go ahead and put in a really simple sort of on the beat, maybe double time. Probably will just be on the beat. Hi-hat. Rhythm. Okay, so let's just go ahead and record. So that's double the speed of the beat. And just going to go ahead and quantize those by highlighting them all. And you can either press Q on your keypad or you can press Q up here. And I'm going to show you guys a little shortcut that's going to make your lives so easy. We're going to make them all the same length and all the same velocity. So once you have them all highlighted, leave them highlighted and hover over the back of any of them until you get the lengthening tool. Now click and hold that. And I want you to hold Alt and Shift on your keypad at the same time. So click and hold on the MIDI note and then Alt and Shift on your keypad and just drag to the right or the left and you'll see that they all snap to exactly the same length. Now I'm going to make this more obvious. I'm going to make some of them really long so you'll see exactly what happens. So I'm going to select all of them again, click and hold over the back end of any of the MIDI notes, hold Alt and Shift, and if I drag to the right or left, you see that they snap all to the same length, which is perfect. It's exactly what we need. And I'm going to keep Alt and Shift held down, and I'm just going to touch the velocity bar as well. And what that does is by touching that velocity slider with Alt and Shift held down makes them all exactly the same velocity too. So we're just trying to create a very neutral starting ground. We can always change the velocities and the lengths later if we need to. And this should sound like this. There is a little bit of a click on the end of the sample, if you can kind of hear that, on the end of the hi-hat, which doesn't sound great. Now, it's just a great hi-hat sample, but it hasn't been sort of refined when it was bounced down. So if you just listen out for that. Almost feels like there are two hi-hats. Now, it may sound more obvious when I do this next thing. I'm going to go into the XS24, hit edit, and open this up. And what I'm going to do is add a fade out here from functions. Now, you don't always need to do this with your sample. Your sample might be good enough. I love the sample, but it's just got that click. So just listen to it one more time, and then I'm going to add the fade out and we'll listen to it again. It's just that little bit cleaner. Some samples are going to need the fade out. Most of the time they won't. And you'll just have to re-save that. Great, fantastic. Okay, now that we know how to make a nice trap hat pattern, let's take a look at putting down some snares. Thanks for watching and see you in the next video. Now that we've put our hats down, let's put in some snares. Again, I'm going to be using an 808 kit, so I do recommend that you try and find one online. There are loads of great free 808 samples, all that are really high quality. It's just going to take a little bit of searching. I'm going to open a new EXS24 sampler, again in stereo. And I'm just going to grab the snares here, and I already know that I quite like my first one, but we'll have a listen to some of the others anyway. You can hear the first one is the strongest. It's got a lot of character. It sounds like it has a bit of reverb on it as well. So let's press edit and let's just drag number 2 in. Now take a note of what the key is that the original sample will be on, because anything above or below that will be tuned up or down. Okay, so E2 is this one here, and if we listen to the sample, exactly the same. If I move up or down, you can hear it changes in pitch. So again, I'm just going to close this, save it. Let's put it in our trap drums folder. Let's call it trap snares. And I'm going to go ahead and just add a little bit of release here, just so it doesn't cut out the sample too quickly if I decide to make the MIDI note short. You could have it all the way if you wanted, but having some more control over the length is actually quite useful. Now, the snare goes on the 3rd beat of every bar. Rather than playing this in, let's draw it in. So I'm going to right-click, create empty MIDI region. And I'm just going to extend this so it's nice and long. And I've got the pencil set up as my command click tool here. So if I hold command, I can get my little drawing tool here. So the 3rd beat of every bar, which is quite easy because you see it says bar 1, and then that's bar 1, beat 3 there, beat 3 there, same here, and same here. I actually think we're too high here. It's E2, isn't it? Not E3. There we go. Let's drag that down to E2. You can see it in the little black box. It says pitch E2. And let's just have a listen to that. So there you have it. That's how you're going to put your snare in. Just to start with, we're going to complicate things later, so don't worry if it's sounding a little bit boring right now. And in the next video, we're going to show you how to put in the kick rhythm. Last but not least, we're going to be loading in a kick drum, which is the final piece of our foundation. It's the part that gives us this sort of the punch of the track. And we need to make sure that when we open our sampler this time, if you have the option in your DAW, if you don't worry, to open it in mono. Now, the reason why we open it in mono is so it's not biased towards the left or the right-hand side. Now, what I mean by that is when something is recorded in stereo, it's either recorded with 2 microphones or 2 line leads, And there is a chance that it might be panned slightly to the left or the right, or the way it's processed makes it more stereo, which is great for things like hats and claps and some sort of mid and higher synths because it makes everything sound wider. When it comes to something like a kick or even bass, you definitely want it in mono. And the reason for this is so that it's not slightly to the left or slightly to the right. A mono signal means it's never going to be biased to one side or the other. So it's going to cut through the middle really nicely. I've changed sample pack because the kicks in that other sample pack aren't so good, but I'm on this Metro Boomin sample pack that he released for free. And I've got this great kick here, which again, I'm just going to load in by itself. Again, take note of the key. So C3, which is that one there. Let's close that, save it. And I'm going to call this Trap Kick. I'm going to call it, well, no, I was going to call it Trap Kick 1. We're going to put some more kicks in later, you'll see, but that's fine. I'll call the next one Trap Kick 2. Again, a little bit of release, and all of your samplers will have an ADSR controlling the volume of the sample, the volume envelope. So a little bit of release is necessary to stop things cutting out too abruptly. Okay, again, I'm just going to draw this in, and we're just going to put some on the first beat of the bar. And then we're going to start creating something a little bit more interesting. So I've created my MIDI region. I'm just going to hold Command to get my pencil tool. And I'm just going to try by putting them on the first beat of the first and the third bar for now. And let's just build that up. Okay, it sounds good, but it's a little bit boring. So let's try adding a second one here. See how that sounds. And then maybe let's add some more in the first and second bar. So I think there could be more kicks. Let's try one on the second and the fourth. And I'm going to just try one here just before the second kick on the first beat of the second bar. Not so keen on that. Let's make that a bit later. Let's try here. And let's do the same with the fourth one. Let's move on to the second beat of their bar. And let's add a little bit of variation on this one here. So let's do 3 kicks like that. And maybe another kick just here to reintroduce that one there. Great. Now, if your kick is quite long and the samples are sort of overlapping from one to the other, in your sampler, try and change it to monophonic if you have that option. Monophonic, it might be one shot, but usually it's just monophonic, or it might also be called retrigger. And it just means that if the kick is overlapping slightly, as soon as the next kick starts, it's going to cut out the one before. So monophonic, think about it like a monophonic ringtone on a mobile phone. It was one note at a time, that's all it could play, rather than polyphonic, where you can play multiple notes at once, and you have the same in synthesizers. So what I recommend is try experimenting by putting first one on the first beat, one on the third beat, and then building the kicks around that until you find some sort of rhythm that you fancy. Okay guys, thanks for watching, and in the next video we're going to be showing you how to develop your hats so they sound more interesting. We've got a foundation, and it's time to go back to the hats and start to make those a little bit more interesting. So if we just click on the MIDI region so we can see what's going on, and let's just focus on 2 bars for now. Just going to zoom in a little bit here. And the other thing I'm going to do is change the grid. Now we've got a 16 grid here. I want to change it to a 32 grid so I can see more lines onto which I'm going to be able to copy and paste some of these MIDI notes. Now to do that, I'm just going to click up here and go to custom. And then I'm going to go onto 16 and click 32. And you'll see immediately we start to get more lines here. We're going to try and create those really cool trappy drums. And a lot of the kind of coolness comes from the hats. It doesn't just come from the change on rhythm, but the change in pitch. We're going to work on rhythm first and then pitch later. Now, usually you want to do it towards the end of the bar. So you're kind of trying to conclude the phrase and make it a bit more interesting. So let's just try something really simple here. Let's just try dragging 4 together like that and see how that sounds. So that's kind of cool, really simple. Now, what if we do a similar thing at the end of this, but I'm going to halve those MIDI notes. I'm going to leave a little bit of space in between them, and I'm going to put them on the lines in between, so the even smaller grid lines. So immediately starting to sound more interesting. Now, just like with the kick, if you are worried about the hats overlapping and not being monophonic, then just change your sampler to monophonic, just like that. And that just means that the next note is going to cancel out the one before, even if it's overlapping. Essentially, it should give you a cleaner sound. Now, we've got this thing going on the first and the second bar. I'm going to copy and paste it for the third and the fourth, but we are going to add some variation because we want to make it as interesting as we can. So let's maybe do a sort of double one here. Just again, trying to conclude those phrases. And then on this one, I'm going to do something even more interesting. So I'm going to get rid of what we have. I'm going to copy and paste what we have from this one here. Tell you what, let's just draw it out. Let's be simpler. Just like this. 1, 2, 3. And I'm going to grab them. I'm going to make a triplet rhythm with these. So you'll hear what it sounds like in a second, but a triplet rhythm is going to just give us even more kind of movement to our hats. And I'm going to go for a 16th triplet. An 8th triplet quantize. And you'll see it kind of puts them just off the grid. They're not actually out of time. It's just a different rhythm. And don't forget to go back to your normal quantizing when you're quantizing other things. Otherwise, it's going to drive you mad. So let's have a listen to that. So you can hear that rhythm just at the end, that kind of 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Think of it like a waltz. Let's listen to the bar. And we got that nice little variation on this one here. Great. Now that we've got the rhythm, let's change the melody. Really not, it's not a melody, but it's the tuning of the hats that's going to make them a bit more interesting. So let's just try dragging these ones down so they kind of descend in pitch. And let's grab these ones as well and make them kind of low. I'm just doing this randomly. I'm not trying to find a particular note or anything. And again, let's drag these ones on the same one. And I'm going to try these going up. Let's see how that sounds. I think maybe let's just have these two at the end going up. Keep it simpler. Amazing how much more interesting that is. All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed that. Let's have a look at snares next. Now we're going to be taking a look at adding some more snares. Now, unlike the hats, I actually want to put some new samples in as opposed to using the snare sample that's already there. And that's just to increase the different tones that we're getting from the drums. So I'm going to go ahead and open a new EXS24 sampler in stereo. Make sure you don't open it in mono like the kick. Stereo is always going to make things sound a bit wider. And hit edit. And let's just grab all of these snares here. So you can select loads of snares at once by just holding Shift and then clicking on the furthest one you want to get to and just clicking and dragging them in. Now, the reason for using loads of snares is I'm not really looking to tune the snare up and down the keyboard. I kind of want some options. I want to put a rhythm in and then see what my options are with the different tones and the different snares and whether they're matching what's already going on in my project. One thing to make sure you do is once you're in here, select them all with Command A and take them off of one shot. This means that you're going to be able to control the length of the sample with the length of the MIDI note. Otherwise, it doesn't matter how short the MIDI note is, it's always going to play the whole length of the sample, even if it's really long and it's got loads of reverb on it. So let's close that. Let's save it. And I'm just going to make something called Trap Snares Multi 2. Like that. Fantastic. A little bit of release, just 35 milliseconds. And I'm going to put them in monophonic straight away. So I'm just going to freestyle something on the keyboard, find a snare that I like, record it in, and then use the editor window to move things around. So something really simple, just like that. And I'm filling in the gaps here in the groove. I'm not trying to play at the same time as anything else. So just a little bit of variation on that second one, which I didn't play the first time around, but I just felt like that was going to be right. So highlighting them all with Command A, Q for quantize, and then I'm just going to make them all the same length. Ooh. And all the same velocity, just like that. Let's have a listen to that. That's kind of cool. Let's see if maybe a third one works. Maybe a fourth. It's probably a little overkill. Let's get rid of that last one there. So again, sometimes simple is better. So I've got this kind of double here and then a slight variation there. Again, keeping it really interesting for the listener. Now, once you've got your snare, you can always go into your sampler and shape it. A lot of samplers have a sort of filtering section, a tuning section, so you can actually tune it without having just to drag one in. And a volume envelope, which means we can shape the sort of the kind of attack and the decay and the release, maybe to get it to fit a little bit better. So I'm going to try the filter first. I'm going to turn it on, and I'm going to choose an 18 decibel filter, and I'm going to turn on fat. So as it sort of pulls it down, it boosts the volume a little bit, which is quite nice. Let's take that drive off. Now let's just loop around these and hear them soloed. So with that, let's try it even harsher. So let's add a bit of drive. So without. And by taking out the high frequencies, we sort of tuck them into the background a little bit more. Now I'm just going to see if I can shape the volume ever so slightly. I'm going to pull that sustain down and then increase the decay really slowly until I feel like I'm at the point where I want with this snare. Kind of want like a short, punchy thing. I think that's really doing the trick. Now let's see how that fits in with everything else. See how it feels tucked into the background, and later on we are going to add things like reverb, which is going to make it feel even further away. For now, it's just about shaping everything as much as you can without having to open any EQ or any sort of effects, and getting the right rhythm and the right feel. And in the next video, we'll be taking a look at how to add some cymbals for some more high frequency energy. So we're starting to get more and more interesting in our track and the rhythm. And I want to come back to the hats. I want to focus a little bit more on sort of cymbals, so open hats and rides and crashes. And we want to just add a little bit more energy to the sort of high frequency section, which is going to be really useful in things like choruses, because a little bit of few more sounds that have high frequencies add more energy. And that is really, really useful when trying to lift a section and draw the listener's attention. So let's start with some open hats. I'm going to load EXS24 sampler again in stereo, and let's get some open hats up. Now, I'm not worried about the pitch or the tuning again, like the other sounds. So I'm just going to drag all of these in at once. And then just like before with the snare, highlight them all, take them off one shot, close it, save it, and let's call this trap open hats. Great. A little bit of release and monophonic. They're never going to be playing that close together, but it's worth it. I'm going to create a MIDI region. I'm going to drag it up by the closed hats, and I'm going to select them at the same time. So let's just add just a random hat in this one first. Just like that, and then let's select them. Oh, we can kind of see I've put it on C3 there. So I'm going to bring that down here. Now, the reason why I want to be able to see the closed hats at the same time is because I want to sort of work out what's going on in the closed hats rhythmically and be able to add an open hat around them, which is going to help them be a bit more bouncy. If I put this open hat, where this is going on or where this is going on, it might just make it sort of sound a bit confusing. So I'm trying to fill in the gaps a little bit. So let's find a hat that we like. I'm kind of into that. Let's start with that. Let's increase the velocity a little bit. And I'm just going to solo the hats so we can listen to them. Okay, kind of like that. Let's try this one. And let's try taking that hat out whilst the open one plays. Okay, that's cool. Let's hear that with the rest of the drums. Let's have a similar thing here. Let's have a double. Let's try something like this. Okay, I'm really into that. That sounds cool. And let's just double those onto the next section as well. I don't think that needs to be muted, to be honest. I think we can keep that playing. And you can start to hear how all the drums are working around each other. Now, to make this even more interesting, I'm going to duplicate this twice. So we've got 3 tracks for the hats. And you're probably thinking I'm a bit mad, but bear with me. We're going to pan one to the left and one to the right. Not all the way, because it's going to be a little bit too far. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep the first one in the middle, and then the second one on the left and the second one on the right. So we can go ahead and mute these in the first region. And then the second region, we want to mute the first one and the third one. And again, the first one and the third one of that group there. And then on the last one, we just want to keep the last of the 3 just like that. And what we're going to get is this nice movement of the hats, which is going to make things so much more interesting. So check it out. So all of a sudden, we're trying to increase that stereo field, make things a bit wider and catch the listener's attention a bit more because, sometimes drums can be a little bit boring. So you got to make them exciting. You got to find easy and simple ways to do that. Right, let's also add some cymbals. Again, we're just going to open a new EXS24 sampler for this. And let's see what we have. I actually have some nice sort of effect cymbals here. So let's see which one we like. That one's okay. Let's take all of them, and we can always change. So here they are. And let's take them off one shot. Close it, save it. And let's call them trap cymbals / rides. This one's super easy, guys. We're just going to put this on the first beat of every bar. It's just to lift the energy again. So you can go ahead and draw that in. You can record it. It's totally up to you. When you record samples, and they do start on C1, so that is something to bear in mind. They won't be on C3. And we can see that here, key C1. So if you're not sure where the samples start, just have a look here, key C1, and then locate that on your keyboard. You can play your keyboard and it should eventually show you where you are. Close. We can put them in monophonic as well. And that's perfect. So let's just draw. Let's get a bit more of a zoom on here. It's a bit small. Do one on the beat of every first bar. Just going to copy and paste these. I'm going to join them again over here. And I'm going to make them the full length so they play for really long, but they're monophonic, so the next one will cut it out. And let's just have a listen to that. Okay, I reckon we should have them double time actually. Okay, not sure about that sample. Let's try this one. And next. That one definitely sticks to me. It also has some sort of nice panning effect already going on. We'll be able to control that later if we don't feel it's really working for the track though. Okay guys, I hope you enjoyed that, and we will see you in the next video to show you how to layer your drums to get thicker tones. We want to go ahead and actually process these plucks right now rather than waiting, because we kind of want to get the vibe a little bit. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to track stack them so we can process them all as one, and I'm just going to highlight them all, right click, and create track stacks. So this is just grouping them and sending them to one bus, and that just means that I can process them all in one go. And first thing I'm going to do is just grab the pitch shifter by Logic, and let's bring it down 12 semitones and mix 50%. Let's see how that sounds. Let's try up soft tone. Now what I'm really doing here is I'm not really keen on it being 12 semitones lower. It's just that the pitch shifter in Logic or some sort of DAW pitch shifters are just not that good quality, and they don't sound great. And I'm just trying to reduce the quality of these quite shiny synths. And we're going to do that in a few stages. So we're going to start with the pitch shifter. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to use a bit crusher, and we're just going to downsample a little bit. you can kind of see where I'm going with this. It's just, you know, digital synths sound fantastic and they are amazing, but sometimes we don't want them to sound so fantastic. All right, next up, let's grab some reverb. I'm going to use the Valhalla Vintage Reverb for this. It's definitely my favorite reverb. It's just got a great sound to it and it's easy to use. Let's try a different kind of room. Okay, great. So now I'm going to use this free filter that I found, which I absolutely love, and it's by AudioSalt BPB. It's called the Filter Crusher. Totally free. Just got to punch your email address in or something, and then you can go ahead and do a high pass and low pass filter. But what's cool about it is it's just a little grittier. It's still very smooth and it's still got a nice vibe to it, but the resonance is really nice. You've got this kind of crush option, which gives a little bit of distortion if that's what you're after. I'm just going to start by rolling out some of the low frequencies. Don't want any resonance on that though. That's sounding really nice. I wonder if we put the Valhalla after the filter. It's really nice, making it kind of airy. Let's hear that with the rest of the track. Cool, that's sounding great. I might rein in the vintage reverb a bit. I think this Eastern pluck could come down a bit more. I don't really know if I want that being the kind of lead sound. See, that sounds better already. So it's lost a bit of volume. Let's just give it some more output. So before, that's sounding great. I just think it needs, again, like I was saying, a little bit more output. And we could go ahead and edit this if we want, you know. We can make it more simple, we can make it more complicated, give it some more space, you know, maybe this is more of a chorus melody. So let's just go in and all those kind of cool bits that we added, let's just try taking them out for now. So I'm highlighting it all at once. Just move that cycle as well. Just make sure the drums are lined up correctly. And if we just zoom in on this, just take out these kind of more interesting parts. And we could even break it down a lot further. Let's see how that sounds. So there you have a kind of introduction. You could do sort of like a development of that as well, and eventually you could then get to the full riff, and it's up to you. You don't have to use the full riff entirely, but let's try a melodic change here. And then let's copy that again. And maybe that could actually be on the G there. And then you have a nice progression. You got something really simple. Maybe you're using that for breakdowns, maybe you're using it for the introduction, and then this could be for the verse. And then the chorus. And each of them you could sort of automate it, bring down, maybe the reverb's a little extra. Increase that pre-delay a bit. So we've created a few options for ourselves for different sections of the track. It might be that we don't end up using this at all and we end up using that, but it just goes to show that you can make something really simple, overcomplicate it, and then resimplify it. Especially once we put on those effects, we could hear that the melody needed a bit of space because of the reverb and so on. And in the next video, we'll be looking how to record some synth pads to add some atmosphere and ambience to your track. Now we're going to be taking a look at how to create a really ominous, evil pad that's going to work beautifully in things like the introduction and the breakdowns when you're not wanting to use that really fat 808. And they will never play at the same time, but it is kind of important that we have them in the track because it's just sections that need that bit more of that attention. So I'm going to show you how to actually build it from scratch in Silent. So we're going to hit the plus, we're going to open Silent, and the first thing we're going to do is we are just going to go to Menu, Preset, and Clear. And this is going to give us a completely blank patch, and it should be just a sawtooth, as we can see here in oscillator A1. So let's go ahead and start by making this 2 voices. Should make the sound a little bit thicker, and I want to tune it down with the fine tuner ever so slightly and add some detune here. Let's also take re-trigger off. Secondly, let's add another oscillator. So we're going to do 2 voices here as well. And we're going to grab the sawtooth as well, but we're going to tune this one a little bit up. We're also going to detune it, but slightly less. Let's see how that sounds. It's got this fantastic movement throughout the sound, and that's because of the fact that they're sort of detuned, and that means that they're out of sync. We'll also take re-trigger off here as well. So just for a held note, there's already all that movement. Now let's go here and go to pitch AB, and we're going to do a really slow rate, tiny bit of gain, and then we'll just sort of increase this quite drastically just to hear what's going on. And essentially we're just going to get the sine wave to make the pitch move up and down, again giving it even more motion. Let's make sure it's a free rate. So some really nice movement there too. And we're going to go ahead and put a filter on now. So we'll go to filter type, I want to use the low pass filter. I want to cut out all those high frequencies. A little bit of resonance just to help it kind of become a bit more squelchy. That's really nice. And let's get that cutoff moving as well. So we'll do cutoff AB. I know it's only cutoff A, but I always do cutoff AB because I just get paranoid that it's not going to do it otherwise. And again, let's just increase the rate, slightly different rate. Let's just increase this and then increase the gain to see how much we want. So I quite like that. I think I'm going to apply it to the resonance as well. So some really, really, really nice movement in that sound. I'm just going to make it a little less obvious. Now you'll see where I'm going with this in a second. Just going to click the reverb. So it has that kind of even more droney feel to it. Okay, now check this out. Now I'm going to show you again how to make the melodies. So we're going to go to the plugin section. We're going to grab pitch correction from pitch. And we're going to use it in the C natural minor scale. Just going to go ahead and open my keyboard at the same time so you can see what I'm doing. And again, we're going to pick 4 notes, but we're going to do 1 note every 2 bars. So changes every 2 bars. And that's going to make things really, really simple. So I would recommend probably starting on the root note of the key, or the 5th could sound quite good as well. All right, let's just try some melodies out, and we're just going to freestyle this. Almost there. That's really nice. So we're going C to D sharp to G sharp and then to F. And those, as you can see, are all notes that we can use in our palette. So in our keys. So I'm just going to go ahead and record those, and we'll be able to use those at any point in the track. I've just chosen to use it at this point here because I think it sounds particularly good. I think we're probably going to be using this pluck section the most in the track anyway. And I'm just going to make them all the same velocity. Absolutely loving that. Now let's go ahead and layer it straight away. I'm going to go back to the retro synth, so to something a little more familiar. And let's just grab a pad. Let's get rid of this. Let's grab a pad sound. Something really simple. Dark swell pad. Let's see how that sounds. Just copy and paste it over. I think that sounds almost perfect. Let's just bring the release down. I think that was just quite a lucky choice there of preset. And I want to try bringing it 1 octave down. See how that works together with that. Let's bring the volume down a bit. Great, and without. And with. And there's a little bit of a click coming from silent, and I think that's because the attack and the release are just a little too fast, and it's quite a normal thing to get, is that kind of clicking sound when the attack and release are really fast. So let's try that now. It's nice, it's droning, it's heavy. That octave down has really added the weight necessary that it needs to pop through. So without and with. And with the rest of the track. Let's see if we can open the cutoff a bit on this one. Get a bit more growl. That's better. And we're going to compress them later, make sure that they're kind of squashed together so that they're not getting too loud in volume. And we'll probably cut out some of those low frequencies anyway, but layering sounds, as you can see, just up to this point in the tutorial is so important for getting that thickness, and it's something that's, again, really overlooked. Next up, we're going to show you how to make a 808 bass by sampling an audio clip, and this is the part of the track that's going to make your song rumble. So we've put one bassy element in that we're going to be using in the breakdowns, but now we want to put in our sort of higher energy 808 bass that we're going to be using more constantly throughout the track to give that kind of boominess and that low end feel that really gets your head nodding. I'm going to just hit plus, go to the EXS24 sampler in mono, and hit create. Now I'm going to show you how to make this with a sample, and then I'm also going to show you how to make it in silent, because I think it would be great for you guys to know how to do both if you want more control or you just can't find the sample that you're after. So let's hit edit, and I'm just going to go ahead and find exactly what I need. So trap drums. I don't know why I put it in drums, because it's not a drum, but you know, it's just kind of part of the same family. So I've got quite a few different ones. There's quite a clean one there, quite a dirty one. I'm kind of into this one here, I think, and I'm just extending that a little bit because I want to see what note it starts on. This is going to be really key to helping me write a melody. So I'm going to drag this in. And it actually does it automatically. Logic's quite clever sometimes. Ableton does the same. It will work it out. But sometimes if it doesn't, it's worth taking a note of what the note is, and then you can change it here. But here, it's done it almost perfectly. So let's try this one here, and then we can always switch it out for a different one once we've got our pattern in. So I'm just going to close this. Save it. This is called Bull, so let's just save it as that. Trap, bass, Bull. And we'll put it in monophonic. A little bit of release if you remember that from before. So treating it similarly to the drum samples. It's not a drum sample, it's still an audio sample. Okay, and if you get stuck on what to use, remember that you can just use your pitch correction tool, and that will help you work out which notes you want to use. So I'm just going to grab that up there for anyone wondering what notes I will be playing, and we'll get the keyboard as well. Here I am. Okay, cool. So let's try and do a really simple pattern, and we want to think about how it works with the kick and also how it works with the melodies that are already there. I'm just going to go ahead and just do it all on one note for now, all on the C. Let's just get a count in. So you can see a really simple pattern there. And I'm just feeling it out. I think don't spend too much time being technical, enjoy it. And a MIDI keyboard can really help you do that. Whereas if you draw everything in, not as fun, to be honest. Okay. So I'm really into that. I'm not sure about this note. It kind of bores me a little bit. Maybe we'll try and put it with a kick. Let's see what happens. Yeah, I'm pretty into that. I think that sounds nice. We've got the one note down, and sometimes in trap music that's enough. You just need that one low note that's just really going to sound super fat. But if you do want to make melodies, there's also nothing wrong with that. So let's try add it. I'm just going to copy and paste this over here. So I have another option, and I'm just going to bring it up to the G, which we can use, which is this one here. We can use the G because it's part of the key of our C natural minor scale. And let's just see how that one sounds there. Let's just play these two bars. I kind of feel like maybe we could do like another one there, just because that's where the kick hits. Okay, let's see if we can do one here as well. So trying to make this as interesting as possible now. Not quite. Maybe getting a bit complicated again. Let's have a look. Okay, really enjoying that now. Let's make them all legato, so when one note finishes, the next one starts, and then we're actually going to pull them back a bit, but we all want them basically to be touching. If I go to trim, note end to selected notes, force legato, you see that they all go from one to the other. But I just want to create a little bit of distance between each note, so it just has a second to die in volume before reaching the other one, and that will give the next note a little bit more impact. I think we could do it even more. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to increase the release a little bit and pull them back. This one needs to be a bit longer. Now, what a lot of people don't know about is in samplers or in EXS24, you actually have this portamento, this glide, which means you can make it go from note to note with that kind of sweeping into the tuning. I'm just going to exaggerate it so you can hear exactly what's going on, and then I'm going to bring it down a bit. You can hear it's not quite getting there because it's quite far away, whereas before. And again. So I think a little bit is pretty cool actually. And let's just hear how that sounds on the track. Okay, great. Now let's just quickly try that with one of the slightly more aggressive sounding 808s. See if it maybe pops a little bit more, because this one's nice, it's sitting underneath, but do we want something that sits on top? Do we want to potentially layer them? Let's just have a look. Quite like that one. That one's nice, but the only problem is it's not giving me the note on that one, so I think I'm gonna go with this one here, and it says G. See, it didn't actually put it on G, so let's make sure we do that. There we go. Starting note is G. Close that. Save, and we'll call this trap bass dirty. Copy and paste. So it needs to come up an octave. Just going to select them all with Command A, Alt and Shift, and then up on the keypad. There we go. We need a little bit of release. And monophonic as well. Now, it's got a really high sustain, this sound, so we can shape it a little bit with the envelope here. So it ducks a little bit. It not ducks, it comes down in volume, it decays in volume, as opposed to being a solid volume all the way throughout like this. Which can sound really good in some songs, especially in trap music, but it's just not necessary right now. And by having it come down a little bit, the next note just feels like it has a little bit more impact. Let's see with the glide as well. Great, and if we put it one octave up, it might work as a layer for this one. See, I really fancy that as a layer above with the octave up. That gives it a little bit more of that kind of tone, which is going to be really important for people who are playing it through smaller speakers who don't have big bassy speakers. All right, guys, have a go at trying that out and experiment. Use the samples wisely. Make sure you tune them correctly. Remember, you've got the pitch correction if you're not sure which notes to use. Make something simple and then develop it afterwards. Okay, now that we've taken a look at how to make an 808 bass with an audio clip, what we're going to do now is show you how to do it with a synthesizer. If you don't fancy using a sample, you can actually make an 808 bass sound in a synthesizer, and I'm going to show you exactly how. So let's go ahead and open Silent. You want any sort of intermediate to advanced synthesizer that you know well. All the principles are the same. So it's not like you won't be able to replicate this in another synth. And I'm going to go ahead and hit Menu, Preset, and I'm going to clear the preset. Now I'm going to change the waveform to a sine wave because that's essentially what an 808 bass is. And it's quite a boring sound actually when you just listen to it by itself. I'm going to increase to 2 voices. Just sounds a little bit fatter. And let's just come off the attack a little bit. Actually, we'll give it quite a lot of release, quite a lot of decay, and no sustain, so we get this kind of shaped volume. You can kind of see where this is going. Obviously, you can edit that if you want to. You can change that to whatever you feel works best for your 808. We're going to change the polyphony to 1, essentially making it monophonic, so there's no overlaps. And then we're going to go down to the modulation envelope. You can use 1 or 2. And I'm just going to choose pitch A. And I'm going to set it to look like this. So a tiny little bit of decay. Now watch what happens as I increase this. We start to get this kind of punch at the front of it because it's just quickly going up in pitch and coming back down. Without, just kind of boring. Now you don't need a lot, you just need a little bit. The more decay you add, the weirder it gets. So just around there seems perfect. And what makes an 808 sound so good is actually distortion. So we're going to go ahead and apply some distortion and decide which one we like. We've got a few here. That already sounds fantastic if you ask me. Let's try fallback. Love that as well. Not so sure about that. Not at all. Horrendous. Okay. Let's try overdrive. Let's bring the amount down. Find a nice balance with the dry and wet. And then let's go over to modulation envelope 1. And let's modulate distortion amount. So it looks in a similar envelope as the amplitude envelope. It's going to give us a bit of a click on the front, which is fine. But it's just going to make the distortion kind of open and close a little bit. It's going to make that go up and down in exactly the shape of what we've got going on here. So without, you can have a sort of quite subby, you know, in the background, or if you want it to be a bit more in the foreground, a bit more distortion. See if we can get rid of that click. No, it's kind of always going to be there, I think. So let's just let it be. Cool. So there you have how to make our 808 in silent. Now let's take our pattern, copy and paste it down and see how that sounds. Let's give it a bit of sustain. And let's hear it in the track. A little bit of volume here. And let's compare it to the other ones. Surprisingly enough, I thought I was going to like the sample ones more, but I'm really, really loving this one I've just made in silent. For me, it just sits better with the other synthesizers, but that's totally up to you. In the next video, similarly to the sampled 808 bass, we're now going to show you how to make some unique sounding synthesizers by sampling some audio clips and putting them into EXS24. A great way to be original in your production is using samples and weird samples to try and create new sounds, new synths, whatever it may be in your track. What I've decided to do is actually take this airplane sample that I found, the fasten seatbelt sound, and put it into our track. I'm going to try and make basically a synth out of it. I just downloaded these, I found them on YouTube, and I don't think you can copyright a seatbelt sound. So I think we're going to be okay. Now I really love the grittiness to those sounds. I love that they have a bit of white noise in the background. I think that's going to add some really nice texture. I'm not going to be fighting to make it lo-fi. It's already there. So I'm just going to click and drag this in down here. This seems to have given me, maybe that's not the one I was listening to. Hold on. It's the second one. There you go. I didn't recognize that waveform. Okay, let's get rid of this one. I downloaded a couple. The other one was really clean and I wasn't into it, so I wanted something with that kind of nice airplane white noise. Now I'm just going to trim it. I just want this long sample here with all that noise in it as well. Just going to trim all the way up to where the waveform starts, and then let's just get rid of the back end of this. Just up to that point there. Perfect. Now, I want to actually put this into EXS24, so I'm going to right click on it and I'm going to do convert to new sampler track. I'm actually going to choose regions. There is only one transient here, to be honest, so it wouldn't really make a difference, but I'm going to choose regions anyway. I'm going to put C1 because I'm not quite sure what note it is yet, but I'm going to find out in a second and then correct that. So let's just turn that down in volume and let's have a listen to it. So let's see what note it is. It's a B. And I'm just doing that by ear. Cool, so what we can do is go into EXS24. Let's hit edit and let's change this to B. And then it should be in the right key now. In order to spread it across the whole keyboard, I just got to take this small sort of region here and expand it all the way across. Just like that. You can actually hear someone fastening their seatbelt, which is so cool. But definitely getting a great sound from that. So let's save it. Let's add some nice release. And I want to try and actually make a lead melody with this. So again, if you want, open the pitch correction tool. You can use that to help you find out exactly what notes you want to play. This is essentially like your melodic hook. So you want to try and make this memorable. Now, it's about taking some time and trying to work out exactly what it is. It's not going to be the first thing that you write. You might need to write, maybe 6 or 7 different sequences until you come up with the right one. So I know the notes that I can play because we've been playing in C minor this whole time. So I'm going to see if I can do something interesting over this section here. Let's get the plucks in. Let's definitely get the bass in as well. And let's get some of these hats in. Let's get all the drums in, why not? Okay, let's try that. That kind of works for me, I think. Already got it wrong. Let's try that one more time. So I just did a little bit of a variation there at the end to keep it interesting. And let's just have a listen through, see if there's anything we want to change. I'm just made everything the same length and the same velocity. So it's just a nice neutral starting point. Okay, so that just needs to be moved. So that feels a bit cheesy, that last bit here. So let's try and maybe make that a bit better. And that's just out of time. Swap these two around. Great. And there we have our lead melody. Now I'm just trying to make more interesting rhythms. This one's going ding, 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 ding. And then we've got the bass sound, which is just, you know, quite simple again. It's got a bit of rhythm to it, but it's just one note. So this really has to catch the audience's attention. You want this to be the earworm. Let's try putting it up 1 octave. So I'm just going to select those all, Alt and Shift, and then up. That's a little too Game Boy for me. Let's try down. I'm keen to actually have both. How about we take the octave down and the octave up? So let's just bring this down here. Sometimes it does a strange thing in Logic where it just doesn't think that the sample exists. So it struggles copying and pasting it, but it is here. You can see it right there. We've got to copy and paste it and do another one because it's in monophonic, so it will only play 1 note at a time. Let's just make sure it's got that. Great. And let's just show this one's playing. Perfect. Now let's just make sure the pitch correction's off for both of them. And let's bring the volume down of the higher one. Without. Now, there's all that noise in the background, but that doesn't actually bother me. I really think that that's going to play in really nicely, especially when we add some effects. Although I do think I want the higher octave to be louder and the lower octave to be quieter. Of course, it needs some effects and some reverb and so on, and I'm just going to show you how to do that in the next video. So now that we've got our lead sound, we definitely need to bring it to life a little bit with some effects. So what I'm going to start by doing is just track stacking them so we can just treat them as one, and then we don't really have to think about that too much. You know, we don't want to have to put the same effects on both. And if we process them together, it should glue the sounds together a little bit better. So we'll just do Command-Shift-D is the shortcut, or if I right-click and create track stack, create summing stack, and then let's just call this lead pluck. Let's solo this here, and I'm going to show you guys my secret weapon, which is the pedal board here. And just before we put these effects on, let's just get rid of any low frequencies that we don't want. And I'm just going to use a FabFilter Pro Q2 for this. And I'm just filtering out everything under 240 Hertz there. There wasn't really that much anyway, but it's just enough to clean up the sound a little bit, ensure it's not interfering with any other things that have low frequencies, or for example, the bass, which could be really problematic. So we've got this really weird effect here called the Roswell ringer. Just to listen with it on. Way too much, right? But if you set the frequency to 0, let's pull the mix down. And let's put the fine to 0 as well. And I'm going to put it on linear rather than exponential. Now there's no difference there because there's no mix. And if we start increasing or decreasing the frequency ever so slightly, we start to get a bit of this kind of weird bell sound. And I'm just trying to mess it up a little bit here. I'm going to go a little bit less on the mix. I kind of like that tone that it's giving it. It's super weird. It's quite unflattering, but I think it's really going to work in the mix. The next thing I want to add is the Robo Flanger. It's got a really metallic classic feel to it. It's just a regular flanger, super easy to use. I usually just whack the manual and the depth all the way up, and it gives it this amazing stereo feel. Absolutely love that. And then let's just go ahead and add a spring box here. So again, another kind of quite metallic sounding delay, which I think is just going to bring out the nicer parts of the sound. And you've got different styles of delay here. I quite like the boutique one. I'm going to put the time to long, and I'm just going to increase the tone so it's targeting the higher frequencies more. Love that. Now, there are some low frequencies that have been added, especially after this Roswell ringer. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to grab a graphic EQ, put it in, and then just bring down those low frequencies there. Let's just shape this a bit. Just give it a bit of presence in those high frequencies. Without. I think it's really bringing it out the woodwork. And we can actually adjust how much of this effect we actually want with this mixer. This is completely dry and this is completely wet. I don't think we're going to need the mixer, but just in case you find a sort of a series or a chain of effects that you love, but you just want a little bit, you know, you just don't want to overdo it so much. So let's hear it dry. And let's kind of introduce it in and see what happens. And let's hear that in the track. Maybe we'll want more or less. Really love how that's affecting the sound, and I did end up actually adding more rather than less. I think with the full effect, you lose some of the punch, and that stops it from being a lead and it pushes it a bit into the background. And with it being too dry, it just doesn't sound as nice, and it doesn't glue to the rest of the sounds either. So about sort of 40% dry is actually exactly what we need here. So that would be 60% wet. All right, guys, have a go at playing around with effects that, you know, might be considered to be used for something else. For example, these effects are really designed for guitars, but using them on something like synthesizers is going to give you an even more unique sound and bring those sounds to where they need to be and bring them to life. In the next video, we're going to be taking a look at how to add some background fillers, things that are just going to add a little shine and a little bit more of a professional touch to your track. So we've got the plucks and we've got the bass and we've got the sort of the lead pluck as well. But sometimes we need to fill up what's going on in the background because it's so minimal as a track. It's not like there's loads of pianos and loads of other synths and so on. It really is just this going on melodically. Which is totally fine, but we want to be able to try and fill up some of the space without taking the attention away from this. So we're going to try three things. We're going to try a little bit of sort of vinyl crackle white noise. We're going to try a pad, a kind of boys choir. We're also going to try a sort of arpeggiated sound in the background just to add a bit of movement to the end of the phrases as well, just to kind of give it a bit of finesse. So let's start with that choir. I'm going to use the vintage Mellotron in Logic for this. It sounds super lo-fi. It sounds kind of terrible, but it's perfect for this. So I'm just going to go ahead and open that up, and I'm going to use the boys choir settings. I'll just show you how that sounds. Solo that. Sort of the lower you play it, the better. And you've got this tape speed, which kind of changes the formant of the tone. Let's play it a bit higher. I think we'll get a better. You can kind of see that, and then the tone. So I'm going to go ahead and just record one single note throughout here, and then we'll decide where we want it, octave up or octave down. Just all the way through like that, and let's just quantize it and make sure it's the right length. And let's just play around with some of the settings quickly. So funny enough, on that lower octave, the tape speed doesn't really seem to do anything, probably because it is the lowest tape speed. The tape is playing really, really slowly in order to get that low octave, so no changes there. But the tone, we can definitely get something deeper from that, which I really, really love. So let's just try and feed that in and see how that sounds. I think it sounds fantastic. It's really great. It's not dominating anything, but it is just filling up that space, which is really necessary. I'm going to mute it and unmute it. See if you can feel that sort of the difference in how it's taking up some space in the atmosphere. Now, it is mono right now, so it does feel quite sort of narrow. I'm going to make it a bit more stereo later and help it fill up more space. Great, just adds something, doesn't it? Now, if you're not digging this and it doesn't work for your track, I've got another option for you guys, and that is vinyl crackle. So I've got this great sample here. Well, I wouldn't say great, it's not exactly exciting, but I'm just going to drag that in. Let's just give it a little chop there. And we're going to do the same thing with this. We're just going to bring the volume all the way down. We're going to feed it in until we feel that we have as much of it as we want. And you can see there it's just adding a little something again, taking up a bit of room, but not overdoing it, not taking over from anything else. Okay, now there's one final thing I think we should add, which is kind of similar to these, but I think it just needs a couple of licks. So let's grab the retro synth again. And let's just kind of fill in some of the spaces that we have. I think it could just be a little bit more interesting. And I'm going to go ahead and process it straight away. I'm going to grab that pedal board and let's use a preset. Let's grab like a delay preset. That's kind of cool. Let's just fill up some of that space in the background, see how that sounds. Let's turn it down. really, really like that. And it's going to need a different delay on it, but we'll come back to that after we've recorded it. Okay, great. Let's get rid of that. Copy and paste the servo so they're the same. Played it much better the second time. I've quantized it. I'm going to make them the same length, the same velocity. And let's see if we can just change that delay, maybe get something a bit more interesting. Let's go through a few more presets. That's quite nice. That could work really nicely. Okay, so we've got a nice delay. Let's put something after it. You know, and what's great about these effects, you can just have a lot of fun with them really, really, really quickly. I do like a bit of a phaser or a flanger after a delay. I think that can sound quite cool. Let's try this one. That's really cool. Maybe let's try the octave up. Might be. Let's try it. Let's try to hear it in context. Oh, that's kind of cool, actually. And the octave down. And they're kind of out of time. They should be here. Sorry, here. Let's try having both. What if we had the octave? Something like this. That's great. And it's just so subtly in the background. It's not something that the ear picks up on because there's a lot of other things going on at the same time, but it's just going to help fill in those gaps. And it's adding to the atmosphere as well. In the next video, we'll be taking a look at how to add some vocal effects. Now we're going to take a look at how to add some vocals, process them, and basically increase a bit of energy, but also add even more ambience. So I want to show you how to build up a bit of rhythm, but I also want to show you how to create sort of effects from vocals. Let's go ahead and start with just building up some energy. So you want some kind of gang vocals. So, you know, loads of vocals together that sound almost like a choir. And I guess something like this is what I'm talking about. Like that, or like this. Now, I actually like both of these vocals. The reason why I'm going to use both is I like the high frequencies from this one and the low frequencies from this one here. So I'm just going to go ahead and actually just drag them in. I'm going to do this in audio rather than MIDI because it's sometimes a little bit easier to edit the audio, and an EXS24 can get a little bit fidgety, and I can always put them into MIDI if I want to later. So let's put them on the offbeat of every bar. Let's try that. Just like this. And I'm just gonna, the vocals are quite turned down already. Let's track stack them. Let's put them together straight away because we're probably gonna want to do a bit of filtering. And this vocal, as we can kind of see, starts almost a little bit later than this vocal. This is the higher one. This is a bit lazier, and this one's kind of more punchy. Now let's see how they work together. Let's balance out the volumes first. Really like that. Now I'm thinking might be worth having them double time. And actually let's put them on the second and fourth beat of the bar. Now, rhythmically, I think that immediately feels a lot better. I'm going to go ahead and just throw that filter that we've been using. It's just easy to, cut out the lows, cut out the highs if we need to. I'm just going to get rid of the resonance for now. And it stops us from having to open anything complicated like an EQ. So without and with. Remember, we don't want this to take up too much space. We don't want it to, be in the foreground. It's just there kind of giving that kind of sense of lots of people being behind the track, kind of egging it on. And let's try, just for now, I think I'm going to change this later, just a short reverb. So something really small, but that's gonna, I tell you what, let's use chroma verb, something that's gonna make it feel like it's in a room. I just love the setting that's already on here. That's why I switched chroma verb. Just love that sound. It's almost like a bit of a metallic room, but it works with these kind of rough vocals. Now, the only thing I'm having trouble with right now is this kind of lower vocal, the Z vocal, is a little bit punchy. It comes in a little hard. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually just going to put a bigger fade on the front of that. Let's try 100, and you should see the fade come up there. And that should just bring that volume in gradually. Let's see if it fits better with the top vocal now. Before? Okay, so maybe we need to do it even more. Let's try 150. Let's try even more. Let's try 200. Actually feels like it's coming in a bit late now. Let's go back to 150. I think that's about right. I like the laziness to the vocals. I just think it really works rhythmically, and it kind of pushes things. When things are a little bit lazier, it really helps. In the next video, we'll be taking a look at how to use some vocals as some really large reverb and delayed background effects. Now, in order to create a vocal effect that is somewhat not a vocal, and we're just using this really to add that ambience once in a while in the track and make it, even more eerie, we want to use a different style of vocal. We want to use a sung vocal because it needs to have some kind of note to it. So I'm actually going to go to the Apple loops, and just bear with me because some of these loops are horrendously cheesy, especially the vocals. But what I'm really looking out for is just a sung part, like a small phrase. Doesn't necessarily have to be a word, could be like an ooh or an ah. And once I've got that, then I'll be able to manipulate it in a way that makes it sound so different you would barely recognize it from the original. So something like that wouldn't work because of the harmonies. Now potentially the end of that could work. That sounds quite good. Let's take that as well. Now it actually feels like they're already in the right key. It does say C there, and I'm guessing they do mean C minor. But not to worry, I mean, that makes life easier for us. We don't have to tune it. If you did have to tune the vocal, you could just use the pitch shifter and then adjust the semitones and the sense until you got to where you want to be. Now, I'm actually going to tune this 12 semitones down, just so I can get this really kind of deep, weird vocal. And I'm going to keep the mix at about 50. So I get a little bit of both. And let's just have a listen to this one here. Now let's just take that section there. And let's get rid of that delay on the end. I'm messing with two because I want to try two different ones, get a couple of options. Let's grab that pitch shifter. Let's do the same thing. You can actually copy and paste effects in Logic. A lot of people don't realize that that option is there. Just copy paste makes life so easy rather than having to do it all yourself. Not that that was too difficult moving two dials. Okay. So we got this, and I'm actually gonna start with this one. I think it could be a bit more interesting, and I'm gonna go straight to our friend, the pedal board. And the first thing I'm gonna go for is I just want to throw on a bunch of delays. I really want to break up that vocal. Let's make sure the mix is at all 50%, 50%. I'm trying to essentially get it to not sound like the vocal anymore. Okay, repeats are quite high there. Feedback's pretty high there. Let's do a low cut there. Now I'm wondering, maybe it's just the last bit there actually. That's quite nice. Let's break it up even more. Let's use a reverb. That's quite cool. Let's make the time long. High. Let's try darker tone. High mix. Okay, maybe let's bring back some of that melody. Okay, not bad. Let's try the other one as well. And what we can do is we can actually just copy and paste the pedal board over. Okay, cool. So let's break this up a little bit more. Let's go back to that one we like, the robo flanger. And I'm going to add another reverb after it. I'm going to use this vintage verb just to give it that extra kind of background feel with the reverb nice and long. And we can create some sort of effects out of that we'll use throughout the track. I'm actually going to try a different pitch. Let's try going up. I think that's cooler actually. I like the tone on that. Let's try it with this one as well. And let's make sure we have that Valhalla vintage verb on that one as well. Now I'm not actually too keen on that spring reverb anymore. It was making it sort of too metallic, I think. But that seems to be quite nice, and that's things that we can use again throughout the track, rather than just using white noise or risers or whatever. We'll find places for these throughout the song that we can use to help kind of, like I said, increase the ambience, but also put transitions into place and make them feel smoother. So I want to put one final finishing touch on our creative and melodic elements. And as much as I love this pluck, I just think like it could do with something else. Now, I want to use this effect that I've got up here called Effectrix, and it's a sort of beat step manipulator. You'll see exactly what I mean in a second. We'll flick through some presets just so you get an idea of how it works, and then I'm actually going to work it from scratch and add something to the pluck. So if you've got FL Studio, I think there's something already quite similar in. If not, this is made by Sugar Bytes, guys. It's a fantastic product. You should definitely check it out. So just wanted to play you that to remind you of the riff that we put in, and let's just flick through some presets, and you'll notice these blocks start to appear, and these blocks basically signify at what moment in time in that bar or 2 bars, which is divided into 32 steps. You can actually decide whether it affects 1 bar or 2 bars or whatever. And this has got the X loop, then there's a loop, scratch loop, reverse, so on and so forth. But have a listen to how it manipulates the sound. I mean, that already sounds really cool. Let's hear it in the track. Let's have a listen to some others. So you can see it's pretty crazy, but what we'll do is we'll just start from scratch. So let's just do default. And what I want it to affect is this 3rd note here in the sequence. So this one here. And then in the 3rd bar, again, the same thing. So I'm going to change it so it's happening every 2 bars. It's scrolling through. And then I'm trying to locate where it triggers. So which is, I think it's about 13. Yeah, 13, 12 is exactly where that note plays. And that's where I want to have some effects. So I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to just try the scratch loop. I'm just clicking and dragging over this. And if I actually click on the X loop, I can change the parameters within here. So you see I can do some kind of weird stuff. Maybe let's get rid of the pitch change. And let's make it like a slower tempo. Cool, let's try the scratch loop as well on top of that, why not? Maybe they don't work together, let's see. Oh, the mix is all the way down anyway. Okay, so you get something kind of interesting there. Reverse. Really like that. Maybe just have a little bit less in the mix. And maybe we could try like looping the back end here. It's kind of doing something, and let's maybe try something on the very end, this tonal delay here. And you know what, you can have hours of fun with this. It's sort of endless. So I think it's about trying to understand all the different effects, what they do, and do they work for you. And actually, I'll tell you what, I'm going to put some reverb just on that last bit as well. The tonal delay, let's change it to C. Okay, now let's hear it without. So it's kind of just stretching that bit, you know, that last note out. But in a really subtle way, and I think it will just add something to the track. With these kind of sounds, you know, they're so easy to make, really, if you think about it. So it's about trying to mess them up a little bit so they sound, again, more unique. It is already a unique sound because we're using an airplane fasten seatbelt sign. But now we're trying to sort of manipulate the pitch, the tempo, the rhythm, and it's starting to make things a little bit more interesting. In the next video, we're going to take a look at how to organize our project. So that's naming, coloring, and moving the tracks around so they're in the right place. Let's take a look at something a little more boring, but totally necessary when it comes to making any track. And I wish it's something that someone had told me earlier on, and I probably would have been way more efficient. It's the naming, organizing, and coloring of your track. It's just going to help you so much when it comes to making the structure and navigating your way through the different sounds. So let's start by naming everything. This one is kind of already named, so that's fine. Track close hats. Then we've got trap open hats. I'm just going to copy and paste that here. Okay, didn't copy and paste. Let's just type it in. Trap open hats. And what we'll do is, this one's panned to the left, this one's panned to the right. So let's just, okay, so that's being a bit odd. There we go, let's do that. Let's do L afterwards. And let's do R after this one here. Then I think we have a cymbal here. So we'll just call this ride cymbal. Snares. So we've got snare. And I'm going to rename these snare layer high. And I think this is snare layer low. Let's write snare layer low. Now, any sounds that, are the same, and what I mean is like exactly the same, all layered, I would actually recommend track stacking because it makes them so much easier to move around when you're doing your structure. So I'm just going to do Command-Shift-D for track stack, summing stack, so grouping, stacking. We'll just call this open hats, and then see I can just put them all together into one. I'm going to do the same with the snares because they're always going to be playing at the same time. So might as well move them as one unit. Okay, let's do the kick next. So we're trap kick and then trap kick layer. Let's track stack these. Let's call this kick. And then we've got this kind of fill snare, so that's what we'll call it, fill snare. It's the kind I'll play it to you guys just so you remember. It's that one there. Plucks, that's fine. We've got these long pads, so we'll track stack these that we use throughout the track. So long pads. And these ones, so these are other 808s. Now, we might find we want to use them later, so I'm not going to delete them completely. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to press H, and I'm going to hide them, just like that. And then press H again on my keypad, and that'll just tuck them into the background. Just make sure you mute things before you do that, otherwise you can run into some trouble. You might end up being like, where is that coming from? And not really remembering that you've hidden something. But it's just there, so make sure you mute it first. Here we have... Okay, we've got our 808 bass. Great. And then we've got our lead pluck. That's already track stack. Fantastic. Now with the plucks, the only thing I'm thinking is we've got these different sections. So I might just make 3 of these. So we'll do plucks, simple, plucks, chorus, and plucks, verse. We may not end up using all of them when we're making the structure, but it's nice to know that we have them. So let's just open these up, just like this. So these are the chorus ones, so we'll bring those here. These are the simple ones. So those will go there. We can delete those because those are exactly the same. And then okay, cool. And then these are the verse ones. Great. We just copy and paste them. So we'll run an 8-bar loop. We'll bring these over here. So we've got these long pads. Let's just name them. Lead pad. Oct down pads. That's the lower, kind of grittier one. Great sounds, those. They really, really work together. 808 bass, we can just delete that. The pluck, we can just move over. Same with the boys choir. Same with the static. And you'll see why I'm moving everything over in a bit. It's just because I'm going to use this a little bit like the clip session view in Ableton. I find it much more useful to have a palette there. So just make sure everything's named Boys Choir fine. Then we got this vinyl crackle. And I'm going to move these two to the bottom because they are kind of effects. Let's actually write effects. And I don't really want them to interfere with the track too much. Then we got effects, vocal and effects, vocal 2. Just let's have a listen to these with the track because I actually played them earlier and I was surprised how good they sounded. Love that. Now we are actually going to add more effects later, but you know, this was just one thing that we made with the vocals that I showed you guys. Let's hide this one here as well. We don't need that. Circle of fifths. These are sort of ARPs phrases. Cool. And I think that's it. So let's highlight everything. Functions, name regions by track name. Just like that, so they're all named the same, and I'm going to color them as well. So we get this nice color, which is just really helpful when you're navigating through your page, because you'll be like, oh, where's the bass? Your mind will know that the bass is in blue or whatever it may be. What is it for us? Purple. So you'll be able to find it straight away. So super easy way to get things nice and organized. And in the next video, we'll be taking a look at the first part of mixing, which is going to be balancing the volumes and panning. So it is actually quite easy to mix things in a palette like now. So rather than doing the structure first, it's good to get a good idea of how everything's going to sit together, add the necessary reverb or EQ, and then you can always tweak it later. But you just want to kind of clean things up a little bit, get the volume sitting right, and then you'll be able to sort of tweak anything that you need to, because obviously not everything's going to be playing at the same time, so it's going to sound a bit different. I'm just going to reorganize things a little bit. I like to kind of have kick, snare, hats in this order, and I find that much easier. That we've got our plucks. These are all going to be treated the same, so that's pretty easy. Got our long pads, we've got our bass, and then let's have the bass under the drums, and then everything else is fine. We've got vocals, and then effects. Perfect. So let's start by doing a volume mix down. I'm just going to bring everything down in volume. Make sure all your track stacks are closed when you do this. And we're just going to start with the kick at -10, and that's the number in white. That's going to set a nice benchmark. You might want to turn your speakers up or your headphones up for this point, because everything's going to get a bit quieter. And we're just trying to mix the volumes of our sounds. But if we set the kick to be quite low, and the kick's usually the loudest thing in the song, then we don't run the risk of clipping. You saw there it was in red and I had to reset it. So let's go ahead and do that. Now I usually like the kick to sound around the same volume as the kick, as the snare. Let's go with this fill snare. That's perfect. Don't like the hats to be too far forward when it comes to trap music. We're going to add something that's going to make them pop anyway. Now, when it comes to the bass, here's a little trick. I usually get it so the peak volume is 2 decibels lower than the kick, and I use that as a starting point. I usually get it there by ear anyway, but just to have it there as a starting point is really helpful to understand where the sub, bass should be in relation to the kick. And then I do things by ear and I play things out, and once we cue it, it's probably going to change a little bit as well, but that should be a good starting point for you guys. So personally for me, I think that's a little too loud. I think 2 dB quieter is going to be perfect. Even then, it's just still a little bit too loud. Let's try another 2 dB. And I'm working in headphones right now. It's super tempting to always make the kick and the bass really, really loud. So just be aware, if you are working in headphones, keep them lower than you think you need to. Otherwise, they're just going to totally overwhelm your track. Oh, one little thing, guys. If you want to color these down here, just highlight all of those and then do functions, color track by region color. And you have them like that, which can help as well navigate through the mixer. Now let's just do one of the plucks, because they're all going to be the same volume anyway. I'm going to do the verse one. So that's nice. It's not too in the foreground. It is just a background sound. I kind of want the snare and the bass to be a little more prevalent. And then for the other ones, we're just gonna make them all the same because they are all the same, but we'll just mute them for now. And now we've got these long pads coming in. They'll never play at the same time as the bass, so I'm gonna mute the bass. Great, that sounds fantastic. Let's bring the pluck in. So this is more of a lead, so it should be more in the foreground. I think we're going to achieve that with some EQ in a little bit. I don't think it's necessarily going to work just with the volume, but we'll see if we can get it balanced, alongside everything else. That sounds great. Let's get the arps, the vocals, the effects, and so on. So a little bit low. Remember, they're just background effects. Again, with a bit of EQ, maybe some reverb on there. I think it will sit really nicely. Let's just take out the pluck for a moment and put the 808 bass in, which is going to be happening more often anyway. Oh, sorry, not the pluck, I mean the pads. Okay, I'm really happy with that as a balance. Now, if you can't hear what you're bringing in, just bring the volume up too loud and then pull back from that. Don't be scared to go back over the mixer and decide to, bring things back up or down. But I would try and not move the kick. Try and use the kick as a benchmark and mix everything around that. And in the next video, we'll be taking a look at how to EQ the drums and bass. Let's take a look at applying some EQ to each individual track. Now, we're probably going to have to apply more than just EQ, but let's start with that. Now, it doesn't really matter which EQ you use to do this, but I am going to use the Waves SSL channel. Now, the reason for this is it's a great clean EQ Very modern sounding. I wish I had the G channel, which is what a lot of hip hop records are mixed on. But this is perfect for kind of adding things, carving other things out, and it's got a really nice feel to it, a really nice tone to it, and it's very punchy too. And that's exactly what we need for these sounds. So let's start with the kick. Kick already sounds great. Let's try filtering out some of the low end. Just going to get a little bit more volume here on the stereo out. I'm just going to bring that up. So just filtering out at 50 cycles there. That sounds nice. Let's try and add a bit of top end to this kick. Yeah, it's definitely louder, but we'll come to that in a second. And there seems to be like a bit of a weird mid thing going on. So what I'm going to do is create a really narrow band, boost quite heavily, and just sweep through until I can find that frequency. Kind of around there. That feels a bit strange. So let me see if I pull that out, if that sounds nice or not. Yeah, that sounds fantastic. At this point, I'm not going to compress or anything. I think it sounds good the way it is, but I'm just going to bring this fader down, which is the output, just to match the levels, because I don't want the compressor, the EQ or this channel to add volume. I want it to be exactly the same volume, so we can even monitor it by looking. So it was actually at 18 before, so we can add a little bit more. Now, I do use my ears to do this, but it's also helpful just to look with your eyes, you know? Sounds way better, way more in your face. Okay, let's go to the snare next. By the way, guys, the reasons I don't treat things individually is because I already think they sound good individually. Now, if there's a problem, if when I'm doing the stack, if there's a real issue in that sound and I feel it needs to be controlled, then I will go into the sounds individually and check them out. But otherwise, try and make it as easy for yourself as possible when you're doing things like this. Okay, let's do the snare. So that's great, taking out there at 142 cycles. Just listening to the snare, it's very bright. It's kind of got that high end already. I wonder if maybe it needs some of the high end taken out. But apart from that, I think it sounds okay. Okay, let's just try taking a little bit out around here, around 3. So it makes it a little duller, but I think it sounds quite nice. I think it's just a little bit harsh up there. Let's try compressing it a little bit as well. Let's set the ratio, kind of like a medium ratio, and then we'll work on that threshold. So just touching it without. Let's just check those volumes. 18 with. Oh, it's at 18 as well. Fine, great. So haven't really lost anything. I think that sounds fantastic. This fill snare is probably not going to need much. I kind of want to boost some of those low frequencies, but that's about it. Just going to set the cycles so it's directly around it there. Let's take out some of the lows. But let's give it a boost as well. That's nice. There's a bit of a weird mid coming through there. Let me see if I can find it. Right there. Before? After. I mean, it's subtle, but it just gives it enough. Okay, let's talk about these hats. Now, they really sound really good. I love the sound of these hats. They might be a little fizzy. Maybe we can try and tuck them. Let's give them some more body at around 8. Around 8 and 1, you usually can find quite a lot of nice body in hats. I'm just going to do a low cut in case there are any low frequencies. And let's do another one at sort of 3. I guess we want to take down the volume a little bit here. Just a little bit more. Great. And we are going to give those hats a bit more depth later when we add some distortion and whatnot. These open hats here, I think they could probably do with a little bit of a little bit more high frequencies. So let's boost from 5 upwards. Without. So just bring those out a little bit. There's a nice, let's bring the volume down here. Nice, just a bit fizzier. Right cymbal. Maybe try taking out some of those high frequencies, so just to make room for the other ones. It's nice, it's subtle. I think that's all it needs, just a bit of filtering. Okay, let's move on to the bass. This is definitely going to need a little bit of control. I'm going to start with just doing a cut up to 50 cycles. I feel like that's actually made it louder. Let's just check. So 23, 27. And it's because it's giving a little bump there. So let's just pull that down. But I love what it's doing otherwise. I think it sounds fantastic. So let's give it a nice boost around kind of the 800 mark. Always feels good for bass if you ask me. It kind of brings through some of those mids, but I'm going to do a bit of a duck around 180 with the bell, just to rein it in. And let's do a high cut as well. I want to see if we can get rid of that click. Definitely feels way more controlled. Okay, so when you've got the bass and the drums together, just have a listen to them as you're EQing and see how they work together. You might want to revisit the EQs, and we'll come back in a second and do all the synths. And in the next video, we'll be taking a look at how to EQ the synths, vocals, and effects. Carrying on with EQing some of these sounds. So again, with these plucks, if we do one, we do them all really. So let's grab the SSL channel here. Just gonna open the mixer, easier to look at it like that. Let's take out some of those lows. Kind of want to boost the lows as well though, so I want to cut them, but I want to add some. So they're just filling up a bit more space. It's a bit of a harsh frequency. I'm just going to try and find that and pull it out. Just around there. Let's just take out that out a bit. But I want to make up for it, so let's just boost around 1.5. Just bring it to life a little bit more. It is a bit louder, so let's just take this down. Great, and we can just copy and paste this over. Just like that. Got these nice long pads next. Let's take out 50 cycles. Let's see the full extent of it. I want it to sound darker. I'm going to do a big high cut. Let's pull this down as well. Let's actually boost some of the muddiness. I think that will sound quite cool. Amazing how you can get something to sound so much more emotional and so much deeper with just something like an EQ. It is a little bit louder, I reckon, so let's just put it down a dB. Great. This nice lead airplane pluck. This could definitely do with some love. I'm going to go ahead and compress it first, actually. I want to see if I can get it to be a bit punchier. We've got a slow attack. Let's do a fast release. Just giving it a bit more character. I'm into that. Let's open up those high frequencies. Those are lovely. Let's change the volume. Really important that the volume is always the same because we just balanced all the volumes. So if you're not bringing the volume down on your output, on your EQ, your compressor, your distortion, whatever it may be, you're just going to totally upset that balance. We're not EQing to add volume. We're EQing to add frequencies where we want them. So just be careful when you're doing that. Okay, and it's called gain staging. You've probably heard of it before. You've probably seen it before. It seems like a really boring thing, but I promise you, it's really, really important. Okay, let's just do a low cut on this to finish it off, and let's move on to the other sounds. Okay, great. We've got these little ARP sounds. I want these to sound really floaty, so let's take out any low frequencies. Gonna do some nice big boosts in the highs. It's nice, and I'll just pull the volume down here. Great. These vocal effects. These are the more kind of hip hop vocals. Let's do some compression. Let's take out some of the lows. I want to EQ these with the track actually, because I kind of want to see how they fit alongside everything else, to be honest. Okay, just turn the volume down on my headphones a bit. Love those. I think they're a bit loud. Okay, cool. With these effect ones, I'm actually just gonna roll off some low end. I like them as they are. I don't think they need anything else. And as for the choir, I'm going to do the same, just a little bit of low end on the roll off. I like it as it is. Just hear it in the track. It's a little prominent in the kind of mids, so let's just pull those down. So I still want it there, but that kind of grittiness in the mids is taking up too much space and it's distracting. Let's bring up these nice plucks here. I think they just need to be rebalanced. Let's hear them with the 808. Great, and the vinyl crackle as well, just a low cut. I'm happy with the mids being there. I think those are cool. All right, guys, so some pretty simple EQ. I'm not going into deep with anything. I'm just trying to find a balance between everything and making sure it sounds nice. In the next video, we'll be taking a look at how to use distortion and saturation to add color to our sound and make things a little more aggressive and exciting. When I talk about distortion, what I really mean is saturation and adding some harmonics and some color to the sound. And color is a word I've used quite a lot. And what I mean by that is sort of changing the tone in a musical way to make it sound better. Distortion is often seen as something negative, but actually it's super, super useful for making sounds a little bit louder, but actually also metered, quieter, so we can increase the RMS. And it also allows them to have extra frequencies, which means that they might pop a little bit more in the mix without actually having to gain any volume whatsoever. So I'm going to start with this snare here, and we'll have a look at some different distortions. So I usually always EQ first. And then after I've EQ'd, I have a think about what I may want to add afterwards. Logic's distortions are great. I love the overdrive and I love the distortion. So we're going to start with those first, and then we're going to have a look at another couple of types of distortion that are a bit more advanced and that don't come with Logic. I'm also going to get a level meter over here on the master. And the reason for this is I want to have a look at if we can get the volume of the snare louder, so the perceived volume, so the way you hear it, but get the actual peak quieter, so increasing that RMS. All right, we don't need that, so let's just get rid of that. Pop this down here. Cool, so let's just listen to the snare without the distortion. And with. So it sounds a little bit quieter, so let's just increase it by a decibel. and without. Okay, so they sound pretty much exactly the same, but if we have a look at the meter here, let's just play it with it off for a second. So it's peaking at 17.4. Now look what happens when I turn it on. It's changed to minus 20.1. So it's actually become quieter, but the volume is exactly the same. Now that's because I've already got a bit of drive here and I've pulled the output down a little bit. And what's happening is the drive is essentially clipping off those transients. It's pushing the sound into this sort of virtual resistor. It's getting rid of those really punchy transients and maintaining the body of the sound. And it's not really changing the tone of the snare at all. I mean, it sounds almost identical. But this is a great way to get something like a snare louder, and which may be problematic at the mastering stage to get it to lose some metered volume but stay the same in perceived volume. So again, what you hear. You can do this with different types of distortion. It doesn't have to be just the overdrive. This distortion is great as well. It's got a little bit more character to it, and it does add some low frequencies, so just be aware of that. Each distortion has its own flavor. Let's try, we'll look at the meter in a second. Let's just get the sound right. So just matching the levels now. Okay, great. So if we have a look at the peak with it off, we know it's 17.4. And with it on, so we've actually gained almost 7 dB here. So if I turn it on and off, so let's just turn up a little bit. It actually sounds a little bit louder, but it's 7 decibels quieter. I'm going to go with the distortion. I kind of like the fizz it's adding to the top in comparison to the overdrive, so we can get rid of that. Now, one thing to be aware of with the distortion as opposed to the overdrive is it does add some low frequencies, so it may be worth us just pulling up a FabFilter Pro Q2 and just rolling off some of those low frequencies. It will actually change the peak because of how the sort of a high pass filter affects it. But let's just see. It's added all of this sub down here, so let's make it nice and sharp. So you see, you do add quite a lot back when you do that. So it's just something to be aware of. You could do less. We're just trying to roll off a little bit of that low in there, so that's fine. And it's just a corrective EQ. Sometimes if you add a lot of distortion, you change the color a lot, you might notice some harsh frequencies coming through, some mud coming through. You may like the overall tone, but it doesn't mean that you can't go back and quickly readjust it. Okay, let's have a look at the hats here. So sounding great. They're quite tucked, which I really like. Let's have a look at a different distortion. Let's try the Bit Crusher. I love the Bit Crusher on things with low and high frequencies. Maybe not the same, something that just has low or just has high. And I like to use the drive for things that have low frequencies and the downsampling for things that have high frequencies. And you'll see why in a second. You can get a really nice kind of fizz out of them. Now, I'm going to go for just 2, which is just a tiny bit. I'm going to increase the drive so I can just bring some of that volume back. If you listen carefully, it's just taking out a little bit of that fizz. It's almost like it's doing a high cut but in this kind of really nice musical way. And this is a little trick that I use a lot when hats are too fizzy and I've tried EQing them and they're not sitting quite right in the mix, or they're taking up too much space and they're overtaking the space of another hat. Just to tuck them into the background, I'll use the downsampling to kind of bring them down in volume, bring the sort of high frequencies off, roll them off, and that kind of makes them feel a little bit quieter as well. But it just means that they're taking up a different space frequency-wise, which makes them sit better. I really, really like that. So quite a simple one there. Now, we've got already some distortion on the 808 bass, so I'm going to ignore that. But let's just take a look at the airplane. Where are you? Sorry, the arps and phrases. That's the one I want to look at. Now, it's a cool sound, but it just lacks a little bit of flavor, in my opinion. And let's put this, I'm going to turn this off for a second. I'm going to put the distortion before everything, because I don't want to distort the reverb and the delay. I want the distorted sound to be reverbed and delayed. And I'm going to use this decapitator by Soundtoys. Now, I really love this for synths, especially if you drive it quite hard. You can get something quite interesting out of it. So it's a really simple unit. You've got the drive section here, then you've got this is Ampex, which is a tape machine, EMI, which is a desk, Neve, which is also a desk, Triode and Pentode, which are two different kinds of tube. And they all have a slightly different feel to them, and it's just about flicking through and deciding which one you think works best for your sound. Quite like that one there. Let's do a low cut and let's change the tone. So this is definitely a lot more drastic. You can really hear this distortion, but we've got this dry and wet mix knob, and we can sort of dial it in until we feel that we have some of that kind of crispy distortedness in there. I think about there feels right. And let's just hear it with the EQ and the pedals. That's nice. And maybe we'll just go back to the EQ and just correct it, add a bit of a high cut. That's nice. And that's just adding a little bit of tone and a little bit of flavor. Now, as for the 808 bass, something I love adding is tape saturation, and the Fab Filter Saturn is definitely my go-to for bass. It's the warm tape setting that really does it for me. It just adds a little bump on the low end that kind of makes it a bit rounder, a bit warmer, and helps it kind of sit in a more subby place. Now, one thing to be aware of when you do add this, it's almost a bit too much. So I always do a -1 dB on the bass section of the tone, and that just makes sure that it's just not too much, it's not too subby. And then I'll dial in with the mix as much as I want, and I can sometimes add more drive if I want, more harmonics, but usually about 20% is right. So I'm just looking for some of that roundness, but not too much. 30 feels about right. It's just kind of filling out those low mids in this really, really nice way. Okay guys, so that's distortion and saturation. Now you can use it to thicken out sounds, to give them character. I've kind of shown you a few different examples here. So what we did on the arps and phrases, we're kind of really showing that we're distorting them, and I think that's really cool. I think you can make distortion really obvious. The 808 bass, we're filling it out. We're giving it that bump in the low end with that tape saturation. And with the snare, we're just controlling the peak. So we're almost using it like a compressor. And that's great if you want your tracks to become louder, later and have less peaks and more RMS at the mastering stage. And in the next video, we're going to be using sidechain to help the kick and the bass sit better together, as well as having a great creative effect on sustained sounds such as the choir and the vinyl crackle. Now we're going to be taking a look at compression. We already did some compression with the SSL channel, and that sounded great. We needed it to control some of the dynamics, but there wasn't too much to do. In fact, sometimes the less compression, the better. It's not always necessary to apply. The kind of compression we're going to be talking about is sidechain compression. Sidechain compression is really important for getting some elements to sit harmoniously together, especially the kick and the bass. The kick and the bass share a lot of low frequency energy, which is great, but sometimes it can collide and interfere. So what we want to do is we want to make sure that the bass, the 808 bass, is ducking in volume every time the kick plays. That means that it's just going to give the kick the space it needs to pop through, and there's not going to be so many problems again at the mastering stage. So what we're going to do is we're going to select the bass, and we're going to get a compressor, just a regular native compressor. And we are going to choose this sidechain setting that I have created. Now, you're more than welcome to copy what's going on. In the setting that I've created, I've got a fast attack, medium release, ratio 8.1 to 1, and a pretty hard knee. Just take care to also copy this section here. So we've got a max detection and peak, which just makes it a bit more aggressive. It just means it's reacting a little faster to the transient as opposed to the sort of the average signal, which I like. I think it sounds good. Now, the compressor is on the bass, but we want the kick to trigger this compressor. So we're going to go over to the right-hand side where it says sidechain and scroll down to our kick sound, which is here. In order to get this compressor to trigger to the kick, we have to put the kick into it, even though it's on the bass. And then we got to pull the threshold down. The further we pull the threshold down, the more it's reacting to that kick. So check it out. And with the kick, so you can hear the kick and you can see how that's triggering. Now, how much sidechain compression you add is totally up to you. I don't like too much, but just enough to get a little bit of pump because it does have a cool feel to it. That seems about right. So we've got the kick and the bass sitting really nicely together. The kick's popping through every time, even though the bass still has all those low frequencies, and that's going to have a nice impact on the sound overall. Now, you can also use this creatively, and that's exactly what I'm going to do now. I'm going to add it to this really sustained sound, that the boys choir sound, because I think by making that pump as well, it's going to be like slightly subconscious, but it's going to give the track a little bit of extra movement when all the parts are playing together. So I'm just going to go down to my sidechain setting again. I'm going to load up this trap kick and feed that into the sidechain. And then remember, all I have to do is pull down the threshold. So check this out. So it's giving it some nice pump there. And then the vinyl crackle as well. Let's do exactly the same. So feeding in the sidechain setting, and then just adjusting the threshold. Great. Okay, let's have a listen to that with the bass and the kick. And I'm just going to turn this compressor on and off for all of them. And just see if you can notice the difference in that pumping. Quite cool, no? It's a great little trick. Definitely use it on your kick and bass. Anything else is optional. I wouldn't use it on anything that has like a really short sustain or release, as you're probably not going to notice the effect that much, although it's just a guideline. And, you know, if you want to go ahead and break all the rules, I'm sure it's going to sound great too. And in the next part of the video, we're going to be taking a look at how to do the first part of the structure, which includes the intro, the verse, and part of the first chorus. We've completed being creative and being technical. The creative part is making all the sounds and the elements, and the technical part is mixing them all. They sound fantastic. So let's go ahead and start putting down a bit of structure. We've got this palette here, and I actually like to leave this here. I don't touch this, and I just start the track from later on. And this is just so I can dip in and out of the sounds. If I lose anything or delete anything by accident, I know it's always going to be here. So it's just, I find, a sort of better way, a better workflow with regards to making the track. We've got to start with the introduction. So we've got to think about what that means. The introduction usually has some sort of tension in it. You're kind of letting the listener know that this is your track, or the rapper's track, or whoever it is that's going to be performing on it. And you want to start with something fairly basic, but not too basic. You don't want to make it boring. So let's see, maybe if we start with a... I mean, maybe we could just start with the plucks. Let's just drag those out here. And the choir sample. Let's just see how that sounds. Great. I think that's a perfect introduction. It gives the singer or the rapper a little bit of time to introduce themselves or say any ad-libs that they may want to. You know it's that track because it's got that really sort of quite, you know, significant pluck in it. I'm going to put one of these arps to kind of finish the phrase. And let's go straight into the beat. So let's try just the kick and the snare. And let's bring these pluck verses in here, which are exactly the same, but slightly different melody. And let's just see how that feels. Really like that. It feels just a little bit empty. I'm going to put that fill snare in. Great. Let's pick up the rhythm a little bit. Let's add the hats. And the open ones too. In fact, let's introduce this part by bringing in these vocal effects. That's pretty cool. Let's just check the flow right from the beginning and then see what we want to come into next. So just a quick thought here. We've got this really nice filter. Let's try and bring this down a little bit more just for this beginning bit so that verse 1 pops a little bit more. Let's have one more part of the verse here. And let's bring something else. And you want to do changes every 8 bars to make it interesting. So I think maybe these vocals, which are just slightly in the wrong place. Hold on. They should be like that. Oh, almost. Okay, cool. And let's just go into a pre-chorus here, build a bit of extra tension. Let's bring those nice long pads in. And let's try the chorus plucks in here, just to change the melody a little bit. And they will provide us with some more rhythm because there's more than going on. Let's have that one more time. And again, just, it changes every so often. So let's bring this in here. Let's have it there again. Let's have these vocals come in here just for a second time. And we'll have some sort of effect through there that's going to carry it. Right now, we just want to focus on making the track with what we have, and then we can always make that a little bit more interesting later. Okay, let's bring in the bass for sure. Let's bring in the kick, the snare, the hats. And I actually think, let's go back to the verse plugs. Let's see what happens if we do that rather than going to the keeping the chorus ones going. I kind of like the chorus ones in this section because I feel it needs the pickup in rhythm. Now, something I do want to do, which I think will be really cool, is just have the bass playing by itself for the first note, so nothing else is playing. So I'm just going to highlight all of that with a marquee tool. I'm just holding command there. Should be set up as your command click tool, so this one on the right. Highlighting it. I guess we want it up to where it finishes, which is about here. Let's try anyway. This might not sound very good, but I have a feeling it will. So just cutting all of that out. Let's just split it. Great, let's try. Almost. I kind of want to find out where's the next kick coming in. Okay, so we never muted that anyway, so let's see. Cool, let's take this out. Let's try taking everything out, like right until the next kick. I And that might be even better. Might be more effective. So I just need this to. That's cool. Let's have those lower hats in there. Let's take that out. Cool. Maybe it doesn't even need the plugs. I'm kind of into that. Let's just have the bass by itself. That's pretty cool. And then in this next section, we could bring the plugs back in. So we've got the bass by itself there for a second, just to create that kind of cool tension. We're going to put an effect on as well at some point, but we don't need it just yet. Let's keep those open hats in there. Let's make sure that they're not around for the first bit. And let's grab so we've got the plugs first. Fine. And let's have these kind of here and reintroducing the plugs from the verse. So let's see how that feels flow-wise. That's really cool. I think it just needs something in there. I think maybe the choir. Let's just get it to come in at the same time as everything else. And in the next video, we're going to be taking a look at the second part of the structure, which will be the second verse, the second chorus, and the outro. Okay, so upon listening back to the chorus and the flow, I realized that we have these great lead plugs that really are designed for the chorus, so they need to be in there, and they work really, really nicely in that space. They don't make it feel like it's too empty. So I'm just going to drag those in for both parts. And then to pick up this second part here, I'm going to use this ride cymbal. So it's a combination of picking things up with things with high frequencies, or using things from your drums, or things from your melodic section, so your synths and so on. So let's try that. Cool. I mean, that's quite nice as well, just having sort of 2 bars at the end of almost silence there. But I think let's come back to the simple plugs just for 4 bars. See how that feels. Maybe with this ARP at the end. And then we'll go back into the verse, but we'll go back into the verse and a little fuller this time, not so kind of empty without the hats and stuff. I think that's going to sound better. And I think we should probably keep the bass going as well. So this is just a bit of trial and error. Let's see how it flows first. We want a bit more energy in the second verse. I think that's quite important. You don't want to just copy and paste what you've done. Love the flow into that. Let's just copy and paste that one more time. Let's bring those cool kind of chanty vocals in with this kind of vocal effect. So I actually like that this comes out as well. I have a feeling this might sound kind of cool coming in and out at some points, but we'll come back to that in a second. Okay, cool. So we want to go into another breakdown here. Now I am just going to copy this breakdown because I think it works. And let's put that vocal effect again. I think that's nice. So just to make it a bit different, the second time around, let's actually have the ride cymbal in the, let's have it in this kind of second part of the breakdown. And let's go straight into the drop with, let's go back to the verse plucks. Let's try and take the ride cymbal out. Let's see if we can reintroduce it later. Again, always just trying to keep things interesting. We haven't even added any effects yet, which is great. I think what we could do is add this through here, just to kind of fill up some of the space, and then it will go to this kind of drier drop. So let's just have a listen to all of that. When that has an effect on it and a kind of like a build-up sound here, I think that's going to be perfect. So let's double that again. Let's put the ride cymbal here. And I think we could just continue to build the energy here and then go to an outro after this. So let's change this melody here. Let's add these chants. Let's get that in there as well. Let's see how that flows anyway, and we can always change it. Okay, so I think those chorus plucks with that lead pluck is a little confusing. What I'd really like to do is actually maybe just reintroduce this one time. I thought that sounded quite cool just for this section here. And great, that'll be really, really cool. I have no doubt. Let's take the pluck out, maybe we can reintroduce it back in. That should come out there. That should come out there. I'm just cutting that with the marquee tool, just holding Command and double clicking. And maybe the vocal should come out, and these vocals should come out too. Yeah, I'm into that. Maybe it's keep that vocal effect in there. This, for some reason, feels like it comes in a little early. I'm not sure why. Let's try that. That's better. And then let's go to something a little more minimal here, just to kind of outro the track. So let's get the final crackle back in just to fill in some space. We can kind of lead this to the end. Let's bring the plucks back in as well. Great, and that makes the track about 3 minutes 40, which is perfect for a pop track. Now, you could always extend that. I say pop track, trap track. I mean like a radio track. So if you want to be on radio, 3 minute 30 is usually the absolute maximum. Of course, you can do an extended version, or you could extend this and then do a radio edit. It's totally up to you. But you get the idea of how the structure should develop. So there should be changes every 8 bars. And those changes should be significant enough to draw the listener's attention to what they are. And it should either be a sort of pickup in rhythm, in frequency energy, in melody, whatever it may be. But all those small things make a difference. So if you're thinking that your track sounds a little bit boring or you're not really feeling it, try adding something new. Try adding something with different frequencies, different melody, different rhythm. And I think you'll find that it's going to start to flow really, really nicely musically. Okay, guys, we're going to come back in a second and have a look at adding some effects. And in the next video, we're going to be taking a look at adding some effects to help some of the transitions in our structure. Hi guys, welcome back. And now we're going to take a look at adding some effects. Now, effects are great for helping transitions, but if your transitions aren't good already, then I wouldn't recommend just adding them. More than often, I see producers who rely on their effects to help the transitions because the transitions don't have enough impact. The transitions should sound great already. This isn't a 90s trance track which has to be covered in white noise. So just be sure that you feel the movement and the flow through every section of your structure before you start adding some effects. There seems to be a little error here, so I'm just going to correct this. And let's have a look at some of these effects here. I've sort of dragged one in, but we'll re-drag that one in. Now, I quite like this one. I think it could work for this breakdown here. So let's just drag that in there. Let's see what else we got. Let's take that one. That's a bit of a classic. I would be happy to use that one in the track, but we're not going to use it that often. Like I said, we don't really need these effects because the transitions are good already. So let's try it like this, sort of this riser going into this downlifter here. Now, if you want it to line up to the end of the track, there's actually a really easy way to do this in Logic. If you go to the lengthening tool on the bottom right or left of any region, before you click and hold, just press Alt and you'll see it change. That actually changes your lengthening tool to a time stretching tool. So you've got to hold it down and then just click and lengthen it just as you would normally, but now it's going to time stretch it. And it might take a second to do it depending on how long the file is, but it should make it as long as it needs to be. So let's check this out. So yeah, I don't think it needs that at all. I don't mind the white noise, to be honest, but this just kind of sounds cheesy. Even this could come down. Now I'm at -50 there. I'm really, really low. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to pull the gain down here so I can actually have some more range on my volume slider. Let's go even further. Okay, so maybe we can have this here. I didn't actually like the time stretch. I didn't like what it did to the timing of the sound, so let's just try putting this one here. And again, let's just bring it down in gain. Okay, so we do need to time stretch actually, but it's just not quite in time. So what we'll do is let's just time stretch it like I showed you guys before, highlight it, and go to flex, which is just here. Let's put it in polyphonic. And it sounds like it's in a quarter triplet rhythm. So I'm not going to mess with that too much, but I am going to quantize this audio to a quarter triplet. Let's see if that, okay, that doesn't seem quite right. Let's try an eighth triplet. Still not, okay, let's just try like a regular eighth note. No, okay. Let's go to triplet again. Now, even though that's wrong, I think that sounds great. I actually think that sounds really cool. So that's a nice happy accident that's happened there. Now, I don't think it works on this part of the track. I think it's going to work better maybe here. You kind of want it when it comes in, sorry, I mean here, with like a fuller beat, because it kind of comes into quite a dry 808 there, and it just feels like it's overwhelming it slightly. So let's try it here. So that's great there. I really, really, really like that. It's not totally necessary though. I think the beat flows without it. So when you are adding effects, guys, you want to use a variety of downlifters and risers, and those will really, really help the transitions, but they're not always necessary. And in the next video, we're going to be taking a look at mastering part 1. Okay, great. So let's start mastering. All we need to do is put a loop around the loudest part of our track. So that's going to be where the kick, the drums, and everything else is playing. And I'm going to start with an EQ. Now I've created the setting on the FabFilter Pro Q2, which cuts out all the sides up to 200 Hertz. So that means everything under 200 Hertz is mono, but it boosts the sides at about 3000 with a shelf. And that's to make everything above and around 3000 more stereo, which is really, really nice. It's not going to make a huge difference when I turn it on and off, like not a huge audible difference, but it's definitely going to make sure that we tighten everything and make those necessary cuts. Now I've added these points here because usually there's a little bit of mud around this area and a little bit of harshness around here. So let's see if we can find anything. And it might be a muddiness or hollowness, and it usually comes from the kick. So it just kind of feels a little muddy around there. Let's just take that out just a tiny bit, 1.5 dB. Nice and controlled, and there might be a bit of harshness around here, so let's see. Just about there. Let's take that out, 2 dB, but let's make it really thin. Without. With. Great. Next up, let's do some compressing. I'm going to use the SSL G-Bus compressor. And what I want to do is just compress a little bit. I've already got some settings here, which I quite like to use. I'm not trying to compress the low end. I'm just trying to compress everything above, let's say around 150. So we got a pretty fast attack here, 3 milliseconds, and a kind of nice release. It's 0.6 of a second. So it's a medium, slowish release. So it's not too pumpy. It's going to make the compressor quite transparent. 2-to-1 ratio. So really not compressing much over the threshold there. And you can see it kind of clamping down a bit on the snare. So 3 milliseconds is still going to let through some of that pop, but not enough to sort of let through all the transients, which it's going to make it too punchy, essentially. So we're compressing everything above 150 hertz here. Let's compress now under 150 hertz. And for this, we're going to use the FabFilter Pro MB. So it's a multi-band compressor, and what I can do is just set up a compressor here to compress, around, let's say, 130 hertz. And we're just trying to control the bass a little bit here. Nothing excessive, just the bass and the kick when they sit together. But they already sound quite good, so this will be quite minimal. So again, we got a pretty fast attack. We got quite a fast release as well, actually. And these are quite smart. They have these kind of intelligent settings. They don't say milliseconds because they kind of know how to attack and release. And we're trying to control it, but we're not trying to deaden the sound, which is why we've got a sort of fast release. Again, we've got a low ratio here. We're trying to do minimal amounts of compression. And that feels quite nice. You can see it's just really compressing the kick. It's not compressing the 808 that much, so there's not much need for this anyway. Cool. The final thing I would add here is a little bit of EQ. So let's go with a Pultec for that kind of tube feel. And sometimes just putting it on is enough, but let's see. It just sounds great. So let's do a boost at 60 and a cut at 60. You're boosting and cutting at the same time, which sounds really great. And let's give some high frequencies around 12. But let's also cut a little bit too. Love that. And then one final EQ, which is more of we're just doing this to do actually a low cut and a high cut. And it's just a tame thing. So low cut at 24 hertz. This sounds really good. This EQ at 24 hertz, really smooth. We'll do a cut at 70,000, which It's pretty much inaudible, but apparently it does something. It's cool. And I like to do a boost at about 2.5K as well, just to bring out some of that brightness. And in the next video, we're going to be heading to the second part of mastering, which is going to enable us to bring our track to the maximum volume. Hi guys, welcome back, and we're going to be taking a look at part 2 of mastering now. So we've EQ'd, we've compressed twice, we've done sort of compression on the mid frequencies, compression on the low frequencies, and then we've re-EQ'd and re-EQ'd again. So a lot of EQ, a lot of compression, but it just helps us slowly sculpt the sound and get us to where we need to be. Now, I'm really happy with how everything sounds. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start thinking about a bit of distortion, a bit of limiting, and bringing it up to volume. And of course, it's got to be loud. Everyone knows it's got to be loud. That's super important. Now, a secret tool that I've been using quite a lot recently is this Plug-in Alliance black box analog design tool, and that's amazing for bringing through the mids. You can use it as subtly or as aggressively as you want. It's going through, it's got a sort of 12 tubes for the saturation, and you can switch to 2 different types of 12 tubes. You've got a pentode tube and a triode tube, which it also goes through, and then you kind of got this air to add a bit of fizz to the top. So we'll start with the saturation, and then we'll work into the pentode and triode, and then we'll also work in the air. Let's just pull that output down a little bit to match the volume change. So it's really subtle, but it's adding a little bit of color. So you've got the pentode that adds even harmonics, triode that adds odd harmonics. So let's try the pentode first. You can drive this thing pretty hard and it doesn't distort, you know, it sounds good. So the pentode kind of adds pretty harmonics and this adds more kind of gritty harmonics. So let's try the triode now. Let's get a level match on this. Just adding a bit of extra weight, and let's see if we need some air. That's nice, just opens it up a bit. Next up, I'm going to do some clipping. So just getting rid of any transients before I go into any limiters. This is just going to help with loudness. Let's keep the quality at 32 and just increase this until I get about 1 to 2 dBs of clipping. As simple as that, really. With that one, I don't push it too hard because I don't want any kind of distortion. And then I'm going to use the Waves Ultra Maximizer. With the Ultra Maximize, I'm really just looking to get about a decibel of gain reduction. And then I want to finish it off with another limiter. And using two limiters in combination usually means you can get things a bit louder. It's just a little trick you guys should try out. I'm going to bring up the volume as loud as I can with this one here without totally crushing the dynamics. So let's go ahead and try that. I've got this 1-to-1 setting on, which means that as I bring the gain up, it brings the output down. I'm trying to aim for maximum 3 decibels of gain reduction here. I'm just going to open the attack a little bit as well, so we let through a little bit more of that kick. Without the limiting. Great. Okay, now I recommend you guys turn your speakers down for this because I'm going to take it off the 1-to-1 setting, which is going to remove that output. I'm going to double click here and do -0.2 so we don't get any digital clipping. And that should bring it up to regular volume. Perfect. So there you have it. A combination of EQs, compressors, a little bit of saturation, some clipping, and a couple of limiters should bring you up to where you need to be. All right, guys, I'm going to play the track through once more in the next video so you can hear the final result. I really hope you enjoyed this tutorial. Take care. Bye.